The Roundtable with myself, Talisha Wheeler. I'm joined by these lovely ladies to discuss domestic violence. I have women here who would like to share their stories and experiences, as well as advocates and people who work in that field to help bring more awareness and prevent domestic violence. I would like to go around and have the ladies introduce themselves, and we'll start here with the lovely Miss Latif.
Hi, I'm Latif Howie. I am a relationship coach and author of the Chronicles trilogy.
Hi, my name is Tabitha West Collins, and I am a child survivor of domestic violence, along with being a part of the Mecklenburg County Domestic Violence Speakers Bureau and a part-time employee at Safe Alliance Domestic Violence Women's Shelter and Rape Crisis Counseling Hotline.
And I'm Kelly Vaughn. I am a survivor of domestic violence.
Yes, and I am Linda Dixon. I am a survivor and I run my own organization called No More Tears for domestic violence.
Alexis Alexander. I am a survivor, and also I've had some really close friends that were victims.
And I'm Ashley Garrick. I'm the Social Services Coordinator for Pilgrim's Inn. We're a homeless shelter for women and children in Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Thank you all ladies for joining us. We'll get right into it, and I'm going to let Alexis tell us a little bit about her experiences.
Well, I have several different experiences. Like I said, I have close friends. So early on, I had friends, even in high school. A girlfriend who would just make up excuses about the mysterious accidents that kept happening to her. So that allowed me to take notice. I also had a close friend who was beaten so badly that she was hospitalized. And when people went to go see her, they couldn't recognize her. They didn't recognize her face. That led to my passion. And then years later, I became a victim. Now, the first situation, I will admit, I instigated because I hit first. Okay, not just one hit, it was several hits. And the response was, I was hit a couple times here or there. I was never really bruised or beaten to the point to where it was really severe, but one hit is physical abuse, and that should never be the case. I should never hit him as well. Now later on, which was my very last incident, I was choked. When I was choked, there was a slight scar on my neck, and for the next couple of days, it hurt me every time I tried to swallow food or even drink something. That was my last straw.
With those experiences, did you, reach out or seek, advice or support from anyone? Was
I
anyone
didn't.
there?
No, I was just like, just leave me alone. Let me just stay away from this person. So it wasn't like an ongoing type of physical abuse. It was incidents, and it happened with two people actually. But it was never just like, for some people, they're in a relationship with a person and then they continue that relationship and go back. So that wasn't the case for me. When an incident would happen, I would stay away from that person. Now, it may have been months later that I would speak to him again or whatever. But after that choking incident, that was it.
Right. And I have to just say, there are incidents like that where you did the right thing, you left and got out of the situation. Some, far too often there are women, no matter the age, that will remain in those incidents, and then it just gradually gets worse. And, you know, that kind of leads me into my experiences with domestic violence. I had definitely have had boyfriends who feel like at the time you know, I'm their property, and, you know, you're mine, you belong to me, very possessive. Those kind of things to me now set off red flags. So when I see young ladies have those instances, I'll say something. I have zero problem addressing anyone, anytime, any place, anywhere. And if I can't handle it, I will call for backup. But in my more close situation, I worked with a young lady that in the apartment industry, and we were close friends. Her boyfriend had gotten wind that she was thinking about leaving. He didn't care for it. He actually decided, you know, he took her life from her back in 2005. And the unfortunate part is, you know, the next day we reported to work. It was after the holiday, and she wasn't there. Well, in the apartment industry, we have keys. We can go check on people, and she was our friend. So another coworker and myself went to her apartment to look for her, and we found her. And, you know, long story short, it's an image that will never leave my mind. We called the police. They came. There was a whole to-do. I had to contact her mother and tell my friend's mom what happened to her. And that was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. He stayed in jail for 4 years and then went to trial. He only got 20 years, 4 years served, so 16 years. I have been fearful, and there's, you know, every year, every holiday, I think of her. Every birthday, I think of her. When I enter a place that's too cold, it triggers me walking into her apartment because he turned the air down.
Wow.
You know, it has affected me. It's affected my family. You know, they sense my anxiety around it, and I'm constantly checking the court systems to see if he's been released early, because he constantly appeals and had the nerve to claim self-defense. This guy was like a linebacker. She was like a tiny little girl, but, you know, and I'm not saying that's not possible, but it's definitely, you know, it's tough. It's definitely a tough thing to deal with.
Well, and that is heavy. So with my story, pretty much, it's kind of like what you said, the opposite of your story was, which is I kind of went in and out of a domestic violence situation. So this was my husband. I married this man. So basically, people always ask the question, so like, where did you see the signs? When did you see the signs? Were there any signs? And sometimes there are little red flags, like you can tell a person is aggressive or they get angry very easily. So those were the signs, like he'd be easily angered. It could be, you put a cup right there and you know that the cup doesn't belong on that table because dishes are done. So the cup should be done. And it would turn into a big blow up. So it could be any little thing that would trigger his anger, but what would trigger his violent behavior, that's the part you just kind of really didn't expect, because it could be something small or it could be something big. And the first time I ever dealt with it was actually when I caught him cheating. He got, that's one of those things I still go back in my mind, like, what? How could that happen? Like, I catch you cheating and you swing and you slap me. And when he hit me, basically, he hit me and I basically went down the steps of our home. I was raised with all brothers, so I was used to fighting like a boy, like a tomboy. So that really didn't spark me to leave. It sparked me to fight back, which is another thing that definitely has to be addressed with people who go through domestic violence. You feel like, I'm not going to be a victim, I'm going to fight back, but that's not the right way to fight back. But it's the way that I fought back. I hit him. Anytime he hit me or shoved me, I jumped back And it caused me to feel like that's the way that a relationship is supposed to be. And it basically had me completely pervert what marriage was, because that's not a marriage. You know, that's not a husband's protection of his wife, nor is it a wife's way of responding to a husband. So, been there, in and out, because when I left, I came back again. I came back again after leaving for a little while. I went, stayed with my parents. Then after staying with my parents for a little while, he said he was going to do better. He said he was going to change. He said he was going to seek help. All those things that abusers tend to do to try to win you back. He said it. I wanted to believe it, because by this time we have a child together. I want to believe him. So I go back, and then it starts all over again. This vicious cycle of abuse, from not only me to him, or him to me, and then me to him back in turn. Then my son is seeing it. So does that start another cycle for him as an adult in his relationships, because he now doesn't know how to respond in relationships to when he gets angry.
Wow.
So that's pretty much my story. I finally left, and I'm free now. So
I think the common thing is losing control.
yeah,
And so when you call him cheating, it's like he lost control. He didn't know how to control the situation.
that's right.
And
It sparked anger, for sure. He got very aggressive, because you're right, it was about control, and it's always been about control.
Right. I wanted to say that it is definitely a power and control issue as it relates to the abusive nature of an individual, you know, and all of those things that we see, the quick to anger, the possessiveness, the, you know, you are mine. You know, one of the things that I notice about young girls especially, they think it's cute at first. You know, he loves me, you
Right.
know. But what you don't understand, and what they don't seem to understand, is any level of possessiveness, any
Right.
level of you are mine is not appropriate.
Right.
You know, because we are
Exactly.
not property. I said off camera that, you know, our transparency is somebody else's breakthrough. And
right.
so with being transparent in this situation, we have to really go and talk to our young women and start to break that cycle as well.
You're changing minds early on.
Absolutely.
And, you know, Kelly made reference to, you know, her son seeing that. And, you know, I'm also a mother of 2 boys. I definitely want them to know how, you know, this is a conversation I have all the time. But Tabitha, you had mentioned that you are a child survivor. How has that, you are clearly an advocate against it. So how do you, you know, how did the children process?
I think that for me, what helped was having an early, strong foundation. Living, you know, we came out of a home where, you know, the grandparents were represented. We all lived in a family home. So a lot was shielded from us until my grandmother passed away, because she, you know, that matriarch always shields, you know, in the African American community, I can say. So we were able to see in. So I would say from the age of birth to 13, you know, we didn't know there was any problems. So when she passed away at the age I would say from age of 13 to 17, I was able to see into my mother's life. So what I can say as far as the children are concerned, the best thing that you can do, even if you're in a situation, is continue to reiterate the love, the support, and make sure everything else is solid for them, because consistency is the key. And whatever your faith is, and make sure you have a strong faith base and you have a lot of family support, because outside of our immediate home we had a lot of family support. And of course my grandfather was still alive and wound up raising me and my brother the rest of the way. Really not sure where the breakdown came or the lack of self-esteem, because offenders prey on your lack of self-esteem somewhere in you. And that's the only way they can get in to take the control and be in control. So somewhere, even though my mother was raised in a home where her mother and father were present, there was something broken that someone was able to come in and infiltrate and be able to take control. So, 13 to 17-year-old, I'm fighting off. I'm helping her. She's not defending herself. So they're beating her down in front of me, in front of my brother. I'm fighting off 2 different husbands. One that tried to molest me and didn't because I fought him. And for some reason, whether it was the grace of God or whatever it was, they seen early in me that I was not that girl. Like I'm not her. Like she might be my mom, but you got the wrong one. So when and then I'm sure at some point they probably could have overpowered me. But when I think I fought 3 at different times. They just did not proceed to try to do anything more, knives, trying to sexually molest me, whatever, it did not work. So all I can say is for children, if you can get them out of the situation, the sooner the better. If they can see that you're there and you're there to protect them by any means necessary, I would say do that. And just try to build a strong foundation for them and just make consistency the key and continue to make them feel safe no matter what your situation is and shield them as much as possible is my advice.
I agree. And to kind of segue off of that, on the other side, sometimes children do experience it and then grow up into that lifestyle. And Linda and I were referencing how people at the local high schools are now kind of getting into a trend of, showing signs of being violent towards each other. And something I have noticed recently, there's not only boy-girl relationships where that is happening, there's also girl-girl relationships or boy-boy relationships, and that is something we kind of hit on.
Well, I guess I'll be the other part of the conversation, right? So, for those who don't know me, I am an out Black lesbian, and I have been forever. And I started a relationship. I was in it for 7 years, and we fought every day. It wasn't easy, and police showed up my house differently than what they show up at some other houses. You show up at my house, it's a joke to you. It's not a joke to me, but this is my life. We're going to be transparent, and this is what I am. You can't come through my doors like that. But what people don't realize that we are losing our children quickly. I work with kids. We have those children who stand up and say, I am who I am, and I'm proud of it, but at the same time, we have those boys on boy conversations, and those boys are fighting each other. We have young ladies, this is my girlfriend, you can't talk to her. Oh, baby, you look good today. No, they are about to take over your life, and we don't understand that. A lot of people don't even talk about the issue when it comes to teens because they think, well, maybe they grew out of it. Well, guess what? They may not grow out of it. It might be who they are, accept it, but now we have to push past that, see past that, and see what it means to allow them to be themselves and know that domestic violence is not okay. It is not okay. No matter if you are in love with her, and it's not okay. If he is in love with him, it is not okay for no one to put their hands on no one. The problem is now getting the respect to see what it is right at that moment and handle it instead of pushing it under the carpet.
What part, I think, we spoke earlier about accountability. And one of the things that I write about, I have 3 characters, and they go through all these different life cycles. But then they look at themselves and have to look themselves in the mirror and then tell themselves the truth about what they actually see, right? What part does accountability play in all of this? Really looking at yourself and deciding, finding what that broken piece is, fixing it, or trying to keep yourself accountable so that we can break the cycles. Anybody want to address that?
I will. I'll just say this because y'all spent time talking about the kids, and my son, having to go in his room the next morning, he lost sleep because of these fights. You know, neighbors' kids lost sleep because of these fights because they took place in an apartment on occasions. Like we were in a home at one point, then we were back in an apartment. The aggression became more, it became stronger because now we're in a smaller, tighter space. We have to deal with each other more. We can't just one go upstairs and one go downstairs. And my son, his room is right down the hall. And when you say accountability, I'm accountable for what he had to see, what he had to bear witness to. That's not okay for me to look at my child day after day, send him off to school, and act like he doesn't have to process this.
Right.
So I had to take some responsibility for what I allowed him to see and what I allowed to happen to me. Because if I'm his mother and I'm the first example of a woman in his life,
That is powerful.
it's very powerful. And he can't look at me and say, you know, this is how women are.
Right.
They take this kind of thing.
Right.
I don't want to be responsible for him having that viewpoint and taking that into another relationship when he's older, whether it be a male-female relationship, it doesn't matter. His friendships even. You are not going to bully someone, or you're not. There are incidents where people get abused in love relationships. They get into an argument with a friend. That aggression gets taken out on that friend. You never know what can happen. That person can kill you.
Right.
You know, this happens every day. Women fight back.
Right.
And they do it more so with guns and knives than their fists sometimes. So you just don't want that to be your child's story. So the accountability came in for me when I saw my son was getting older. He had already seen enough of this. Enough is enough. And it's unfortunate. Sometimes we don't have enough self-esteem to do it the right way for ourselves. But I saw him. And like, he's a part of me.
Right.
My son looks just like me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I look at him and I see the boy version of myself, and I'm like, I can't have this be his story.
Right.
So if I get out for him, then I get out for me too.
That is so powerful.
So that's what I did.
Yeah, I take ownership. I take ownership for in the process of my craziness, I lost my children.
Right.
It was real crazy. The court system in New York City is totally different than down here.
Right.
Nothing went the way I thought it was going to go. But I am responsible. We are responsible as children, because when they go to school, all those things that you guys do at home, they go to school and do it.
Absolutely.
I work with kids now. I got 3-year-olds in housekeeping arguing, and they sound like grown people.
Right.
Well, go sit down and go lay down over there. And I look back and go, who are you talking to? And they're talking to their classmate, because all night long they've heard boom, 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 and you look like this, and I don't want to talk to you, and get away from me, you stupid.
Right.
And they say it.
Right.
They do it. They act it. If we don't be held responsible, we all have to take ownership.
That's right.
We all have to, as women, as men, whomever you are, you have to be responsible.
Right.
You in your house fighting, think about why you're fighting. Because it's a child that's listening to you.
Absolutely.
And a lot of those, because I've been a teacher, 35 years now, I've had a child from this size that can think they can walk to where they stand up and pull up. They learn.
That's
They
right.
learn from us. When kids come home every day fighting and beating on each other, it's because y'all don't sat at home and point and beating on each other. So what more would you expect from
Right.
2, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds? Forget it. By the time they get 7 and 8, it's a wrap.
It's ingrained.
Yeah.
Because they're not doing what we say do.
Doing what-
They're doing
They
what
do
they
what
see.
they see.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
They're gonna mimic that.
That ownership is really, really important, even if it's not yourself that's gone through it. My last roommate was in an abusive relationship, and she would go back and forth with the same girlfriend. Like I live in Rock Hill. I've driven up here to Charlotte plenty of times because she was on the side of the road crying, dreads pulled out, faces scratched, and I would just talk to her. I said, "What are you doing? I mean, you live in Spartanburg. Why are you here? What are you going through this for?" And once we became roommates, I saw a lot of, why she stayed. It was the self-esteem that she didn't have. She just had not been built up to be strong, and trying to help her through that was challenging. And I knew that she was in an abusive relationship, and as a case manager, I deal with it, sometimes at work. We're not a battered women's shelter, but we do house women who are fleeing domestic violence. But just to see her in that was really hurtful, and to be a social worker, it's like I have to help everybody. I have to help you. I have to do this. What's wrong with me that I can't help you? That type of thing. So even though I wasn't the one abused in that situation, I still felt some type of way about it. I still felt helpless in that situation. But a situation with her and her ex-girlfriend really escalated to the point they brought it back to the apartment
Mhm.
where they were staying, and it was really, really scary for me. And long story short, I ended up calling the police because it got really violent. The ex had ran over her leg, and she saw absolutely nothing wrong with it, nothing at all. And so for me as her friend, I had to stand up for her. I called the police. She didn't want to press charges. And I said, no, we can't have this here. You need to go home. I had to evict her from the apartment.
Yeah.
And that to me seemed kind of backwards, because usually when someone is being abused, you hold them close and you try to help them. But I actually had to help her go away. Like, look, no, you can't be here. You can't stay here anymore.
Mhm.
This is dangerous for you. You're not ready to stop this yourself. I have a part in it. You know, I'm
Right.
taking time off work now to go to court for
Right.
something that I had
Right.
absolutely nothing to do with. I'm traumatized now because I don't know what this girl is capable of doing. She's here all the time. I don't know if she has a key.
Right.
I don't know anything. I work 8:30 to 5. And, you know, so just to, you know, experience that, I just can't imagine how it is to be in like a full-blown abusive relationship and
Right.
cycle through that so much. And going back to my job, another hurtful thing is seeing someone who's not ready to leave. They can come to our program, and our program is just 90 days. And we tell everyone coming in, you have to be able to work, you have to go to school, you have to save up, you have to take care of your children, you have to find stable housing in 90 days.
Mhm.
You got to get over the trauma of being hurt first, and
Right.
that's not on a timeline. You can't say, okay, 30 days, you should be over it, now you got to get the rest of this stuff done. And so it's hard for me to see someone come in and want to try so bad to just get over it, and then they just give up and say, well, you know, it's easier if I
Mhm.
just go back. It's
Mhm.
better for me if I just go back. I can't do this right now. And that's hard to
It
see
is
that.
hard.
That's very hard to see that. It is, absolutely.
Well, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable,
Yeah.
because that's what happened with me. You know, she just so happened to be a leasing manager at the time where I lived with my husband, but it's about being uncomfortable because financially he kept things stable at home
Mhm.
financially. And so that was that part that I had to let go of, because I had to be able to say, well, how uncomfortable am I willing to be in order to get my life back on track? Because yeah, I might be losing the money that he brings in, but I have to give this up so that I can create a better life for myself and my son.
That's true.
Right, because if not, you may lose your life.
Lose my life.
And I'll kind of start getting ready so we can get to how people can get help and get resources. But before I say that, I want to mention that, you know, as of today, it's just, you know, we're a round table of African American women.
Mhm.
However, you know, domestic violence sees no color,
Right.
no gender, and it affects a lot of people. It affects you or coworkers, friends, family. It extends beyond the actual two people involved in that relationship. So, you know, as a society, we need to be less dismissive of this issue. It's a
Right.
huge issue, and it affects people in one way or another. I would like to kind of mention resources for those seeking help, or, you know, how people can get in contact with each one of your organizations. So if you would, please, we'll start at your end.
So I'm a relationship coach, as I said, and so and the great part about that is I deal with every type of relationship. You know, 2 of my clients are, you know, same sex, you know, and I want people to come and talk to me about how to develop themselves to get better. You know, I think in relationships, especially as women, we are nurturers, right? And so we want to fix everything and everybody. You know, as a relationship coach, I teach you some tools to show that you don't have to fix everybody. You have to start with you first.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
and so definitely you can contact me at my website, LatifeMhowie.com, or you know, if you contact me there, I'll give you my personal number, and we just, you know, I'll start a dialogue. And just for any woman that is listening, know that if you need this service, I am not going to charge you. So please reach out to LatifeMhowie.com and I'll do everything that I can do to help you through that situation.
Ms. Taylor?
Well, right now, I personally have a Facebook page with an up-and-coming ministry of my own, which is just going to be a resource ministry for women of domestic violence and children of domestic violence. And I'm on Facebook under Tabitha West. You can always inbox me, and I can refer you to my sources. I have plenty of friends in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area and beyond that have their own shelters. And in the interim, I've left information with you all here today where you can also contact us at Safe Alliance, contact the Mecklenburg County Domestic Bureau of Domestic Violence. I've left that information as well, and we can also refer you on to other sources that are in the Mecklenburg County and surrounding and other ministries that are able to help you. I've left the materials here today.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We'll be sure to share those. Ms. Dixon?
My organization is called No More Tears, and I focused it around the LGBT community for assistance that is definitely needed. So if someone has ended up in the shelter and they might need pots and pans. When people leave, they leave and leave stuff behind.
Mm-hmm.
So they should be able to come to me and get pots and pans and covers and dishes so they can start over new again.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need somebody to go to court, I'll come sit with you, I'll go to court, whatever it is you need. Sometimes you just need somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
So my organization does that. We also do plays and different types of little things. We get the community involved.
Okay. You have any?
Yeah, and I'm with Pilgrims Inn. Again, we're in Rock Hill, South Carolina. We're a 14-bed shelter for single women and women with children. We also have 10 apartment units, where 5 of those units we use as overflow shelter for large families, and also permanent supportive housing, which is through the Department of Mental Health. We have a child care center on site for children 6 weeks to 4 years of age. We have a job training program for our ladies in the program, where we help them with interviewing skills, how to dress appropriately for a job, what type of job if they've never worked before. And then they also do community service with our agency, where we give them job-related feedback and connect them to different agencies that will help them. As far as employment, we do local transportation, and we also have an emergency food pantry. So anyone who needs food, they can come in once every 3 months and get emergency food, or once a month if they're a senior citizen and disabled.
And I also just want to add, the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence is a website, ncadv.org. You can contact them, or there's so many tools and resources available. Even strangers are willing to help. So, if you find yourself in a situation, get help, get safe. And thank you again, ladies, so much for joining us. We could, I think, talk for hours about this topic, but the main thing is to help someone, anyone, and start getting a change. So thank you, everybody, for this special edition of At the Roundtable. See you next time.